Hello everyone. It's been a while since we've done a live with Autocar session, but I think I'm really happy to have a really special one today because we are joined by someone very special, Dr. Pawan Goenka, the head of Mahindra and Mahindra, and he's really been the driving force of Mahindra for a long time. And today we're going to be talking with him a little bit about the nostalgic part of Mahindra, the brand of Mahindra, the DNA of Mahindra, and what a lot of you want to know about also is the new Thar. Because clearly the Thar embodies the kind of DNA of Mahindra, which we're going to be talking about, as well as some of the other products. So I'm going to try and get Dr. Goenka on right now. Just bear with me. Yes, there we are, and I was waiting for him to connect, and we should be good. So a lot we're going to be chatting with him about. I'm sure a lot of you all have questions, but I'd like to hear his story about his many years with Mahindra, and that's what we're going to be talking to him about. There you are. Welcome, Pawan. Thanks for joining us and talking to us. It's been a while. You're looking very fit and well, I must say. The lockdown and this whole crisis doesn't seem to have, you're looking quite fresh, fighting fit, I would say.
Well, look at you also. Nice beard, salt and pepper. So
getting more and more white and gray. So, yeah.
Good to talk to you.
Yeah, great. So, Pawan, I thought, it's going to be quite interesting this time. What I want to talk about really is, it's going to be 75 years of Mahindra and Mahindra, and in October. And, from 1945 to now, the company, I don't think the founders could ever have dreamt that the company would metamorphosize into what it is today, which is quite global. It's quite international, so many acquisitions going down the electric route. But deep down is the DNA, which really is in the Jeeps with which you all started out. So clearly, for a brand with such a strong legacy, 75 years of it, as I said, kind of the DNA right down to the Jeeps, which you originally started with before the Mahindra brand itself got built up. How important is, let's say this sort of a legacy going forward? Because clearly, I think this is something which not many other companies can leverage. They don't have this kind of history.
I think, Hormazd, like you said, that the company or the group has a legacy, has a history. And there are very few companies today that can boast of such a long history. 75 years ago, we started. And we started with a view of bringing mobility to India. That was one of the objectives, and tied up with, I think at that time was Kaiser Corporation, and brought in the legendary Jeep into India. And for the next perhaps 30 years, we kept making vehicles coming out of that heritage with little bit of changes, some model variations, some variants. But that remained the DNA of Mahindra. And those of us who are in my age group would always remember Mahindra because of the Hindi movies, the Aradhana song, the Hakikat songs, the army vehicles. And really, if you look at Mahindra, though we have moved forward quite a bit in many different businesses, many different segments. But if you were to define the DNA of Mahindra, what is unique about Mahindra, what is different about Mahindra compared to many other car companies, it will be that legacy. And that's what really we're talking about. That legacy, even though in terms of numbers of vehicles sold today, with that kind of heritage is not very large, but that is Mahindra. That's what Mahindra is all about.
So, clearly you're looking at it. I think it'd be fair to say that you have a stronger legacy in a way of the Jeep than, in a way, the classic Jeep itself, because, even Mahindra generically was known as a Jeep in those days. So, do you think that kind of legacy of being a kind of rural player to a certain extent, the toughness, the fact that it's, kind of served deep into the hinterland for decades, that's something which has really given you a lot of strength today? Just looking at the network and the fact that, you've got something like the Bolero, which is very, very enduring. And surely the Bolero is also drawing from that legacy to a certain extent.
So, I guess Mahindra has several compartments. There's a compartment about the rural India, the what value we have added to the hinterland, and of course how hinterland has adopted and adored Mahindra for a long time. That's one part of Mahindra. But the part that we're talking about today, the Mahindra Classics, is more about the adventure, the open top, the short wheelbase kind of vehicle that have its heritage all the way back to CJ3A and culminating to Thar that we have today. And in between, there are many vehicles that came. And that is, in a sense, defines love for automobile. And you remember your friend Bahram Dabar,
Of course.
who always told me that, Pawan, let the car talk to you. Just listen to the car and you will know everything. And he was such a fanatic or such a passionate guy about the cars. And that's what Mahindra Classics is all about. How do you fall in love with it? How does car become part of your life and not just a sort of gadget that moves you from point A to point B? How do you enjoy a car? How do you make your life more meaningful?
Right. Right. So, Pawan, clearly with the Classic, sticking with the Classic, not a very high volume product, but clearly very significant in a way of really establishing the DNA of the brand. As you said, it really looked like the good old CJ of the past. I mean, you could clearly see the evolution over there, which Mahindra kind of started making. And, the CJ340 and the Classic. And so, how important was the Classic in terms of, let's say, from a brand point of view, and all the great escapes, the Mahindra Adventure, which was really spun out of that? Because from a volume point of view, quite honestly, it's not big. These are not really the big volume models. But what sort of role do they play in kind of establishing the brand?
So again, as I said, that even though volume literally is not very large, but even so, I was just counting as I was preparing to talk to you, that we have probably sold about 2.5 lakh vehicles that we call Mahindra Classic 20 years. So it's not a very small volume either. But the important thing is that these vehicles are being used, driven by those people who have a love affair with their cars, right? And therefore, the kind of word of mouth it gets, kind of brand it creates for Mahindra, the DNA that it has, very unique DNA that very few car companies can claim to have, is what makes it very important for us. That's what defines Mahindra. And even if you look at the vehicle that we have evolved to from the original Mahindra Classics, it still has sort of its roots in that, right? We are still one of the manufacturers that believes in frame vehicles, though it's not a very sort of in thing these days. But more than half of our vehicles that we sell today are frame-based vehicles, and the frame actually came from the old MM540, and you will still probably find few parts that are common with MM540. Right? If you look at the way we have our suspension, there's a lot of commonality between it. All our vehicles are designed, even if they're two-wheel drive, they're designed to sort of go in the rough and wide, right? And if you go to sand dunes, many of our two-wheel drive vehicles can negotiate the sand dune reasonably well. So I would say that in terms of defining brand, defining what Mahindra is, and connecting our customers to the brand, the Mahindra Classics play a lot bigger role than what the volume would indicate. And right. Even the live young, live free, the slogan that we have had for quite some time as our brand definition. Live young, live free is nothing but Mahindra Classics. It's coming from there. So really everything is woven into it. As the taste of the customer changes with time, we have to evolve the product. But which product has lived in the memory of people for 70 years in India? Right. Name one that has lived in the memory for 70 years. Yeah. And our CJ or MM540 or the Mahindra Classic are all sort of in some sense immortal products, even if they're sold in small volumes.
So, Pawan, that's very interesting, and I like what you said about the ladder frame. With sticking with the Mahindra Classic and the sheer legacy it has, which again really goes back to the roots of the company. So, is it fair to say that body on frame is something you all have persisted with? Of course, you have a monocoque, let's say, line as well. But I mean, three things: body on frame, a huge ground clearance, and possibly four-wheel drive. I get the sense that you all will never abandon four-wheel drive. You'll always give that as an option. It's part of the DNA. I mean, ranging from the Classic, where in the old-fashioned way you'd select, low gear and just climb up anything. So, is it fair to say that the body on frame, high ground clearance, and a four-wheel drive option will remain and be part of your offering even going forward in the future?
I definitely think so. Body on frame we will never give up on. Four-wheel drive will never give up on. High ground clearance we will never give up on. Having said that, we have to live with times, and as the customer requirements, customer taste changes, we have to give those kind of vehicles. Otherwise, we'll become a small niche player, and therefore we have to kind of keep both the heritage of Mahindra Classics and the modern monocoque, all comfort, almost car-like vehicles that we call SUVs also have to remain. And you would have seen that we started evolving towards that in about 10 years. And today we have a very good mix of products that will have its legacy going back to Mahindra Classics, and also vehicles that are modern vehicles in terms of monocoque design, front-wheel drive, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so that's obviously I think you have to move with the times, as you said. But the other thing which is moving with the times, which I want to talk about, is engines and powertrains. Again, going back to the classic, having a petrol was unheard of in that time, and it was a naturally aspirated, high torque, high capacity, low revving diesel unit, which had that lugging power, which kind of created the whole aura around the off-roadability. So I think in terms of let's say powertrains also, obviously torque, high torque at low RPM, that's very much part of the classic DNA. But moving forward, you kind of evolved to producing now state-of-the-art petrol engines as well. So just a little bit on the powertrain journey, through the years as well.
Yes, Hormazd, this is a very interesting topic, and in a way we are coming full circle. You may recall that the Mahindra Classics used to have that old petrol engine called, I think it was called Hurricane.
Hurricane, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
You have probably driven one of those vehicles.
Yeah, yeah. But it was a diesel. It was a diesel adapted to petrol. To be honest, not really a great engine. Very thirsty.
And later on, we brought in the tractor diesel engines into Mahindra SUVs, Mahindra Classics.
That's right. The NEF
got refined with NEF, with MHawk, and now we have MHawk 2 almost ready to bring out. And that MHawk 2 diesel engine is about as modern a diesel engine as you would see anyway. But the other part of the story is the petrol engine. As we are sort of migrating towards petrol engine, for the reasons of environment and also the reasons of cost, because of very high cost of meeting the emission requirement, Mahindra has prepared itself quite well for the petrol transition. But one thing that we have tried to maintain, Hormazd, because we do come from the diesel DNA. And as you said several times, that the diesel DNA was low end torque and that sort of oomph of getting started. And
that's right, turbo petrols. Yeah.
Therefore, very important for us to meet the performance of diesel on a petrol. And if you look at our petrol engine, the new engines that are coming out, the 1.5 that we already have, I think we have amongst the highest low-end torque for a given displacement in a petrol engine in India. Of any, I'm making that claim not having really checked, but you can confirm that. But I think we'll probably have the highest low-end torque for a given displacement of any petrol engine, and that gives a feeling of performance of a diesel engine, the taking off that you want to see in these kind of vehicles. It's very important, and I think we recognize that soon enough that this will be the requirement, and started working on it almost 4 years ago. And in just 2 days ago, I visited Igatpuri plant and saw the new line that has been put in place for making these new petrol and diesel engines. And I was really remembering my days 25 years ago, what a line looked like and what line looks like today. And it's quite a journey that we have come in this 20 plus.
Pawan, just on a personal note, I want to talk about your journey into Mahindra. From what I understand, when you had joined, you still had a tie-up with Chrysler, and I think your first task was to see the feasibility of launching the Cherokee with Mahindra in India. So tell us a bit about that, because that's an untold story. Obviously, that's now history. Jeep is here on their own. But I still think it's very much part of your history, and Jeep is very much part of Mahindra's history that can't be taken away. So just to understand, what were those days like? Because clearly it was not so easy to do collaborations and all.
Well, it was. I have very few untold stories. Most of it has been told, but this one has not been. In fact, I was interviewed first in Detroit by a gentleman from Chrysler for a job in Mahindra, who was on our board by name of Doug Evans, and I think it was TGIF restaurant where I had this interview, and he sent his report back to Bharat Doshi and Anand Mahindra, and perhaps would have said some good things about me, and therefore I got a call for an interview in India. And the project that was given to me at that time, you would be surprised, was to bring the Grand Cherokee into India as a Mahindra product in collaboration with Chrysler. That was my first project. And within 6 months, I realized that India was not yet ready for the Grand Cherokee. And we couldn't quite make a business case for it.
In what way? Was it just fundamentally the price? It would have just been too costly at that time?
Those days, if I recall right, it was coming to something like 15 lakhs. And you can imagine in 94, Mahindra trying to bring out a 15 lakh vehicle, how many would we have sold? And therefore, there really was no business case that we could identify, and that product had to be abandoned. And slowly, as you know, we started this journey with Bolero, with Scorpio, and the rest is history. But that's the reason I came here. I came here with a view to bring a classic product of Chrysler called Grand Cherokee into India under the Mahindra badge. And once we discovered that cannot be done because of the business case not working out, we then got into the other products that we since developed, which had served us quite well.
Right. So I think, Pawan, quite clearly that was one route which you looked at that didn't go down, but I think Mahindra since then has been wanting to do everything on its own. You've had joint ventures with Ford. Ford also looked at the Scorpio as a potential sharing that as a product. It didn't go very forward. You've had joint ventures with Ford. But I think, looking at the real bedrocks of the company, you've had the earlier, let's say, traditional Jeep-based vehicles, which you've had for so many years leading up into the classic. And frankly, even the Thar, which was, really come from that DNA. But you've had products like the Scorpio and the Bolero also, which, to be honest, are your best-selling products right now. And they are very traditional products. They're not the modern products. So that says a lot about the legacy. But, the fact that these are still the best-selling products after 2 decades, I mean, it's a reason to feel happy and maybe even worried a little bit. So just your thoughts on that.
Well, of course, reason to be happy because very few products have a life that long. And those who, they're customers who are on to their 5th or 6th Scorpio, they won't touch any other vehicle. And even though it's a 20-year-old platform, 22-year-old platform, and therefore clearly it's lacking many of the modern day things that you will do in a new platform. And as you know that we will be soon coming out with Z101. But again, the important part for us was to balance. The advancement to the modern vehicles. At the same time, not to forget our legacy, not to forget what Mahindra Classics is all about. If you go back, the product that we had launched, I think in '96, called Mahindra Classic. That was the name of that product, which came out of I think CJ something, CJ3. That product sold only 2,200 vehicles. Okay, but that is one of the most sought after product today, even today. Anybody who has that product will never give it away. They keep sort of adding chrome to it and doing this and doing that. And there's so many clubs that are there, 4-wheel drive club in India. And if you go to any of these clubs, there are 30, 40 of those that we are aware of. You will find that 80-90% of vehicles in those clubs are Mahindra vehicles. The Thars, the Classic, the CL340 and all of those.
Yeah.
So again, I think it's very important for us, and that's the reason we're talking about it now. That in a way we are rediscovering ourselves and sort of making the customers to rediscover Mahindra by talking about Mahindra. By saying that this is what has built Mahindra, this is what Mahindra is. and bringing out brand new product, as you are aware, to reinforce this whole Mahindra Classic thing. And I think, Hormazd, what is very important, and it's happening less and less today because of many other concerns that we have, but automobiles have always been an object of desire. And rarely in the old days was an object of mobility. It was always object of desire, right? And the kind of stories that you can tell, the kind of adventure that you have done, as I mentioned earlier, the Bollywood movies, the army use, the great escapes that we do, the adventure runs that we do. Those are things that are etched in the memory of very few, but those customers who would give their life for it, in a manner of speaking, right? To have that weekend with a Mahindra vehicle, either in deserts of Rajasthan somewhere or in hills of Himalayan countries somewhere. And in a sense, we're saying, look, shouldn't we be doing more of that? We had the Thar, which we stopped making last month or last year. Which I think we sold about 65,000 Thars over a period of 10 years. Maybe 6,000 average per year. But you're thinking that, aren't people looking for products like that to have fun, to enjoy life, to really do what they want to do, adventure, off-road, whatever it might be. And in a sense, there is no other company in India that can lay a claim to that space. Right. And we want to bring that back in a much bigger way than what we have done in the recent past. Yes, we had the Thar, but we didn't really do much with it. We didn't really play it up. And now we want to kind of help rediscover Mahindra.
Right. And it's true. Pawan, that's really fascinating. So just looking at the journey and really where the brand has been built. I mean, as you said, a lot of 4x4 clubs have things like the classics, the 340 before that, very short wheelbase vehicles, which is great for off-roadability, torquey engine, low range on the gearbox and all that. So did that kind of, do you think that, let's say, fanatical following gave you a far better response to the original Thar than you thought? From what I remember, you never expected to sell as many Thars as you did because even the Thar wasn't really a car with a broad appeal. It still had its limitations in some of the creature comforts, two-door, soft top, all that sort of thing, the kind of things which would keep it a niche, but it wasn't that much of a niche. So did that come as a surprise? The fact that you sold more Thars than you expected to?
It did come as a surprise. We didn't expect to sell this many, and it was really meant to be a niche product because we needed to continue our legacy of Mahindra Classics. But I think there are several things that played a role in it. And one of the ones that you are very familiar with and attended many of those are the great escapes that we do.
That's right. Yeah. I remember going on the first one. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And I was there on the first one too, but I didn't know you at that time.
Yeah. Started in Bombay.
That's right. That's right. So the great escapes really makes those who go there, attend those, to really realize what fun one can have with a car.
Yeah.
And Mahindra Classics now is all about, as I said many times now, to love your car.
Yeah.
And make it part of your family, make it part of your life.
Right.
And that's the reason we sold many more. But like you said, that the current Thar, the one that we just stopped making last year, didn't have many of the creature comfort. It still had many things that we had stayed with from the original 15 years ago. And what we had to do was, if we really wanted to make Thar a mainstream vehicle and not the third or fourth or fifth vehicle in a family, we had to bring in all the creature comforts, right? All the modern day amenities, as you may call it, and yet maintain the DNA of the Thar of Mahindra Classics. And what we have to do is, for the first time ever, I think we are launching a product which is completely ground up design.
Right.
Other than few bolts, probably nothing is common with the outgoing Thar. A completely ground up design, brand new platform with brand new body design, brand new everything, and a brand new engine.
So Pawan, I think a lot of people want to know, we know what there are. There's a 2-liter diesel and a 2-liter petrol. I think you're going the full Monty. There'll be automatic, there'll be manual. I think you're keeping the basic DNA, which is two-door, and the lifestyle orientation, but you broaden the appeal by making it more on-road friendly, not compromising the off-roadability. And I think your new generation of engines. So these are going to have some really strong engines, is from what I understand. So, I mean, if you can just give, everyone wants to know a little bit more about the new Thar. So I think if you can now give some teasers, it's not very far away, that would be great.
No, we will have to wait, Hormazd, to save some surprise for the launch that we'll be doing reasonably soon.
Well, as long as you've not denied the engine options, which I've said, then that's fine.
Yeah, you have more or less got it right. In fact, on Friday. On Friday, I drove the new Thar about 45 minutes, and it really was a delight. I mean, just the feeling of being in a Thar and driving like a modern car, with all the pedal positioning, all the air conditioning, the very high torquey 2.2 liter diesel engine, everything was a wonderful feeling. Now, but it still remains, like you said, two-door vehicle and a small vehicle meant for that kind of application, but serving the dual purpose of also being a family vehicle for those who like this kind of form and shape and want to enjoy their weekend somewhere away from city and have a vehicle for the city during the week.
Right. And Pawan, everyone wants to know some time frame on the date. I know it's very difficult in this coronavirus time. So could we say September, October, around Diwali time, or is it hard to say with given the lockdown restrictions that, it's hard to pin a date on this?
Well, let me just say that we are working towards the time frame that you have mentioned. And whether coronavirus will create some kind of dampener, we cannot say right now. As I told you that I drove the vehicle last Friday, we have already made several dozens of vehicles on our line. Everything is ready to go. Just the final touches. And the final touches sometimes, because of coronavirus, could end up taking longer than we had planned. But that's the roughly time frame that we have in mind.
Pawan, one issue which I just want to digress a bit is, we've a lockdown in the Pune area has been announced, and that's where ARAI is for certification. So clearly ARAI locked down for about 10 days. Now everyone's got programs there, validation, certification. Is this lockdown in Pune from an ARAI standpoint, could it potentially delay launches? Because obviously the whole certification process gets halted for this period, and then it kind of cascades.
Well, I don't think ARAI would be on our critical path. So
you've gone past that, yeah.
Yeah, we have enough time to do that. There are a lot of other things that we need to put in place before we can start selling the vehicle. And the vehicle has to be perfect. They cannot be compromised because this will be in a way a hello product for us.
Right.
Product that connects to our roots. Product that connects. First time ever, we are launching a Mahindra Classic on a brand new platform. First time ever. So I mean, that's a big statement that first time ever we are launching a Mahindra Classic on a brand new platform.
Well, so that really is something to look forward to. But Pawan, before I end, I just want to come back to the whole.
I have a couple of questions for you before you end.
Sure. Yeah, of course. Happy to answer them.
Right. So Hormazd, you probably have had exposure to or enjoyed the Mahindra Classics even longer than I have, because you started as a rally driver.
1988, I took part in a big event.
You drove one of these vehicles in the Himalayan rally.
That's right.
Has it sort of bring some memories to you?
Absolutely. I mean, for me, it was probably my I used to rally quite regularly in a very intense 10-year period. And 1988, I was a works driver for Mahindra along with Farhad Batina. And we had the good old MM 540. But what we had was a 2.5 liter Mitsubishi engine, which was actually a petrol engine, which they used to export to Iran. And that's what we had, which gave us a huge edge. Obviously, the car had to be tough enough to cope with the kind of pounding it took. And I can tell you it took a huge amount of pounding because we would not lift off for everything. I mean, there are shots of the cars in the air, landing on its nose, everything. And in fact, just to tell you the kind of beating it took, we had a sticker which was stuck across one of the panels. And when we landed, the sticker tore, you know, because it was slightly separated, but there was no damage to the chassis at all. The body kind of bent a bit, and the sticker in the middle kind of tore with that. But absolutely, it was amazing because we had no real reliability issues. And I remember the drive we did, and I still have that timesheet. We did Leh to Srinagar in 6.5 hours. At that time, it was actually Sonmarg, but a little outside Srinagar. They shut the roads for us. So 6.5 hours a journey, which would normally have to do overnight in Kargil. So it was amazing. And so that was been my experience. And then I've really enjoyed the Great Escapes. And in fact, I want to take this opportunity to also say that I think, you know, the Mahindra adventure, I think has been just something fantastic. I think Bijoy and his team have done an amazing job on that front, really building the brand. And I think I've enjoyed so many of the Great Escapes. And that's why, Pawan, I want to ask you, I think Mahindra Adventure as a kind of a unit or a division, which no other manufacturer has managed to build with this kind of passion, and it's a brand in itself. I hope that's going to be a strong part of, let's say, you know, the push in kind of maintaining the passion and the kind of connect with the classic brand.
Well, the fact that we are talking about Mahindra Classics right now clearly shows our sort of commitment to Mahindra Adventure. And Mahindra Adventure and Mahindra Classic are almost synonymous.
Right.
You cannot have one without the other. Say that the key point here, Hormazd, is that how do we bring the pride and fun of owning a car, bring it back? Somewhere it is lost in all the various things that we talk about these days. How do we bring it back? And it is a humble effort to kind of present that opportunity to the customers who would like to see car as more than just a mobility device. I think what we're doing with Mahindra Adventure is not about any kind of commercial benefit to us. It is about giving that opportunity to our customers to enjoy life. What we're doing with Great Escape, same thing, right? We do a lot of these Thar rallies separately. We have some trophy that we give out. We have Igatpuri. I don't know if you have been there. The Igatpuri four-wheel drive.
Yes, I have. It's one of its kind.
We bring 500-600 people there every year. We started bringing 5,000-6,000. And that facility is really fun. I mean, if you go there once, you would want to go there again for sure. So these are all our efforts to try and make automotive interesting. Okay, with a classical Mahindra classic vehicle that we're bringing back in a totally new avatar, and bringing in the old memories that we have had with these vehicles.
Right. So Pawan, on that note, what I'd like to just end with and get your thoughts on is clearly, I think, you know, post the pandemic, post the coronavirus, I think things are going to change forever. But one gets the sense that you will have one group which is using mobility just to get around, and that's where the electrification play will happen. But there will still be a strong core of people who just want to get out there, enjoy the outdoors in a safe manner. In fact, you know, a Great Escape is you're naturally socially distanced or even isolated because, you know, you're not in a big group. You're there in the great outdoors. Do you see this as an opportunity as well, that, you know, there will be more people wanting to kind of pursue this sort of lifestyle on wheels, especially after what the whole world has gone through, in a way of just finding a release or, you know, an escape, to use the Great Escape as a euphemism? Yeah.
Well, we obviously believe so, Hormazd. The jury is still out on which way the world will turn. And there are various theories that go around, one of which is that people will not want to share vehicles and everybody will want to own their vehicle. But that's a separate issue. The issue here is that will customers or users want to use their car to go to escape, like you said, right? And I think if you were to look at what are going to be the modes of entertainment, modes of enjoying life. This is one mode that does not have to slow down because of coronavirus. There are many other modes that will slow down because of coronavirus. You will not want to be in a crowded place, right? You will not want to go and attend a party with 500 people. But to go out in the wilderness with your family, friends, and a small group of people, completely out in the open where coronavirus doesn't reach somehow, will be the kind of thing that I think people want to do more of. I don't see any reason why not. I don't see any reason why not. We just need to make sure that there is an affordability in there. It does not become a tool only for a few. Doesn't become a toy only for a few. And we have to make it affordable, accessible, which doesn't necessarily have to happen with ownership alone.
Right.
We're able to do shared ownership.
Or subscription.
Ownership.
Or even a subscription. Yeah.
Subscription ownership. And I think these kind of vehicles could be natural for a subscription ownership or a fractional ownership. And therefore, we need to come out with innovative ways of how we make 10,000 vehicles accessible to 1 lakh people.
Right.
And really make this a way of having fun in life.
Right. So great. I think, Pawan, on that note, having fun in life, that's all. We all need that right now. We all need that optimism. I think all of us are going through a very difficult phase at some level. And I think hopefully by the time the Thar comes out in October, one can only hope that, we are flattening the curve. The curve is going down and people will, after having been really locked up for so many months, want to go out and explore the outdoors. Cars also being launched at a time when we're getting into the nice months. So I think with that, here's hoping that, the Thar, kind of hits the ground with a lot of success, gets into all the Great Escapes, all the Mahindra adventure properties that you're planning, because I think all of us car lovers, something you can't enjoy more than anything else is exploring new places from behind the wheel and having a car that allows you to do so. So thanks, Pawan, for talking to us. Really insightful, for sharing your stories. I really enjoyed this. More a conversation than an interview, but that's how it always is with you. And, loved your frank insights as well. Thank you so much.
Interview? I thought it was a conversation.
Sorry?
Was it an interview? I thought it was a conversation.
Well, it was supposed to start as an interview, but it just ended as a conversation, as you always have one here.
Good to talk to you, Hormazd. Where are you, in your office?
I'm in my office. What about you?
I'm at home.
Oh, you are at home. Okay, great. So, yeah, I mean, we come Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays. We just trying to start off slow, but I'm alone over here. There's just John outside. That's it. So it feels quite spooky. In fact, it's more depressing being in the office because no one's here. I think, better be at home and safe.
Take care.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for that, Pawan. Enjoyed that. Thank you and stay safe and see you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.